With a new year comes a new but equally politically incorrect workspace setup. While this is still largely a work in progress, it has matured to a point of relative stability and is finally ready for exhibition. As always, our standard rules apply. No Apple products, no IKEA things, and no brand new items. So let's just dive right on into it. As always, we begin with the foundational components. This new desk is a significant upgrade from my old model in the last video. In addition to not being discolored and brown, it's also significantly wider, significantly deeper, and a fair bit more sturdy. Notable features include a foldable construction and a dual-purpose keyboard tray, which can switch from this lower configuration to being flush with the rest of the desk. Supplementing the desk is the same 3-drawer organizer that was in the last video, still collecting dust and paper clips. However, being relieved of its duties of holding the laptop, it now has enough room for my Daryl Dixon bobblehead and holding other odds and ends for projects that I'm currently working on. Last and probably also least is this optical media organizer. This is pretty much the same as before, except I found more junk laying around the house to organize with it, including more blank writable optical media, photo albums, software, DVD movies, and down here, empty jewel cases and DVD cases. One of the other unlikely advantages to a larger desk, in addition to just having more surface area, is that it's also more comfortable to sit at, and it allows me to make better use of this fan favorite lifetime folding chair. Putty in color and utilitarian in nature, this chair is pretty simple but does its job very well. Perhaps even better than ever now that there is enough room under the desk for my legs. While the desk was a pretty big upgrade, it's not the only new item to be introduced to the workspace. Here we have, for the first time on the channel, my new Lenovo ThinkPad T61p 15.5-inch laptop computer. And while there will probably be plenty of videos uploaded on this in the future, I'm just going to touch on the basics for right now. This is a circa 2008 machine, which is actually a little bit older than the tablet that we used to have going here at the desk. It's got a dual-core upgraded Intel Core 2 Duo T9300 processor clocked at 2.5 gigahertz with, I believe, 6 megabytes of cache, supplemented by a NVIDIA Quadro FX570M graphics processor, 4 gigabytes of DDR2 RAM, and a 1 terabyte Samsung 5400 RPM hard drive. It's attached to a fairly richly equipped 2504 Lenovo Advanced Mini Dock. As good as the tablet's dock was, this thing is way better. For connectivity, it features a 4-port USB hub, telephone and Ethernet jacks, VGA, DVI, analog audio input and output, as well as legacy ports and power input. And that's not to mention native PS2 connectivity. Now, the port is kind of a bogus one and requires a funky splitter thing to even be able to use a PS2 keyboard with it properly, but native PS2 is much better than the emulated kind of flaky PS2 that was available on that purple USB hub that I featured in the last video. That thing worked okay, but it didn't work very well for the holding down of keys and the repeating of the keystroke. It would just tap it repeatedly very slowly instead of conveying to the computer that it was actually holding the key down, which made the playing of flash games or the holding down of the backspace button to clear erroneously entered text quickly nearly impossible. But that's not all. On the right side, you also get one of the T61p's fun hidden features here that is not a composite video output, that's actually a digital audio output, which is connected over here to this inexpensive digital to analog adapter that I bought on Deal Extreme for around $8 if I remember correctly. You might be wondering why I would use that when the dock station already has an analog audio output. And without straying too far off topic here, the reason for this is that the laptop's analog audio output stream has an equalizer applied to it to provide better sound quality when I'm using headphones. The problem is that this is then over-accentuated by the speaker system, which already has a pretty good equalization. So the solution was to simply use a separate audio output stream that's not affected by that equalizer, conveniently bypassing the restriction altogether. This implementation isn't perfect. I do get some audio glitches and stuff sometimes, and I don't know if that's the fault of the adapter or of the outdated driver for the audio interface on the computer, but it's a non-issue enough of the time that I've more or less learned to work with it. Another fun new gadget that we have back here is the Plugable UGA 2KA video interface. Why do I have my second monitor hooked up to this thing instead of to the dock station's VGA port? Again, it's to sidestep another technical limitation, and that is that the video card, even in this higher end laptop, does not support the use of more than 2 monitors at any one time. This is only one of 2 possible ways around that limitation, and while it's not an ideal solution, it is the least restrictive workaround for having 3 monitors. The other option is the upgraded version of this dock, which is the 2503 Advanced dock. The 2503 Advanced dock is arguably the best dock in the history of laptop docking stations, because not only does it provide all of the connectivity offered by this 2504 Advanced Mini dock, it also has a card reader, extra optical drive, I think it has more USB ports, but most importantly, it offers a real PCI Express interface for a real PCI Express X16 video card. And there's some limitations to it, but that dock connector that's on the other side of that laptop actually does support PCI Express. So if this laptop were hooked up to one of those 2503 Advanced docks, I could use it with another video card. The reason I don't, however, is because when you use another video card, the laptop's built-in display adapter is disabled, which prevents use of the laptop's built-in monitor, which is something I really didn't want to do, and I'll explain why in a moment. Also, that docking station is rumored to have an extremely loud cooling fan to cool the graphic card and its built-in power supply. So in the interest of space savings, noise level, and cost, I just opted to go with this docking station instead. The laptop has built in a 15.5-inch Samsung WU-XGA display panel. That's 1920 by 1200 resolution for those of you keeping score at home, which is a very high resolution for a 15.5-inch display. In fact, I was totally blown away when I first used it. Maybe it's because I've never used a high-density monitor before, maybe another reason, who knows. But it was at that point that I knew that there was no way I was going to let this monitor sit on the sidelines of my workspace. Of course, you can imagine my disappointment when I found out that the video card in this laptop and many other laptops do not support more than 2 monitors at the same time. And of course, that's how we got to using the Plugable UGA to work around that limitation. And it's not a perfect workaround, and I'll get to that in a minute here, but it does work pretty well. The end result is that we have, finally, for the first time ever, an absolutely beautiful 3-monitor configuration, sporting a resolution of over 5.3 megapixels and an aspect ratio of 48:10. Same as before, the main attraction here is the 22-inch Dell E228 WFP running at 1680 by 1050 resolution, flanked by the 19-inch HP W1907 running at 1440 by 900 and now supported by little props to allow its stand to bring it to a level that's slightly closer to being even with everything else. Picture quality on the monitor driven by the USB adapter is excellent, but is limited by the fact that graphical hardware acceleration is either reduced or non-existent for the DisplayLink gadget, so the laptop's CPU has to do most of the heavy lifting here. This leads to slightly suboptimal performance and even some lag when the machine is under a heavy load, so I try to keep mostly minimally demanding applications on this screen. Now you may have noticed that I do appear to be running the very operating system that I've been criticized for criticizing in the past, Windows 10. And there is actually a legitimate reason for that. You see, Windows 10 is actually the first version of Windows that truly and properly supports high-density monitors. High-density monitors have technically been supported for years and years, probably going back to Windows XP, but they never really got the proper treatment they deserved until Windows 10 came out. And that's one of Windows 10's very few redeeming qualities. In addition to properly supporting high-density monitors, Windows 10 also brings one other new and unique feature to the table, and that is its ability to interface with monitors of different display densities. So while the Dell and the HP monitor are at standard 100% scaling, the Samsung panel that's built into the laptop is scaled to 125%. Now, normally in Windows 8.1 or 8 or 7 or Vista or XP and every previous version of Windows, all your displays would have to be at the same scaling level. Windows 10 is the first operating system that provides at least some rudimentary support for non-homogeneous display densities in multi-monitor setups. It is fairly buggy and rudimentary, but it does at least work, so I will give them credit for that. On the input side of things, this laptop forgoes the webcam for something that's actually useful, a keyboard light. While it does have a microphone, it is not as of high quality as the X200's fancy stereo microphone array was, so I'll still be doing most of my post-narrated videos on that laptop going forward. As hinted at earlier, the sound system also receives a significant upgrade here. Not only does this laptop have pretty good built-in speakers for being a laptop sound system, the analog audio output stream actually puts out a much better quality sound to the headphones than the X200 tablet ever did. And as mentioned earlier, the digital to analog adapter feeds the Labtec LCS2414 stereo 2.1 speaker set. And while we're down here, I'll also point out that I did finally find my Belkin cable ties and did some cable management for the first time ever. On the surface of this new desk, not too much has changed. We're still using the same NMB RT2358TW beige PS2 keyboard as before, working better than ever now with that laptop's native PS2 interface, as well as the Dell MUARDEL7 USB mouse. It's not the most comfortable mouse ever, but it's precise and accurate, so I'm happy with it. Underneath the monitor, we have a pretty similar setup to last time. In place of the Digital Innovations wireless mouse, which I don't actually use all that often, we have the AA batteries for the Digital Innovations wireless mouse, which is now joining the keyboard in the drawer of my bureau, so that I can easily find all three pieces of the set when I do need to use them. To the left of that, we have the SanDisk SDCZ80 32GB USB flash drive, which is my main flash drive. My 8GB previous flash drive, the Lexar Jump Drive. The 256MB spare caseless flash drive that I found in a box of stuff somewhere. A 2GB SD card, a 256MB very slow Coca-Cola USB flash drive, and my Toshiba 1TB USB 3 external hard drive. Moving over here, not much else has changed on the surface except for there actually now being enough room for stuff, like a pencil and an i7 processor and some paper. You may have also noticed that that little tiny roll of tape that I said I had owned for over a decade is gone. That's because I finally used up the rest of the tape on it. Back here we have passive display adapters for DVI to VGA, DVI to HDMI, and HDMI to DisplayPort. And that pretty much covers my new politically incorrect workspace. Of course, if you're interested in any of the equipment you've seen here today, Be sure to hit up your local Craigslist or eBay for used items. And as always, thank you for watching the all-new Channel 2012.